You are locked in on the Stingray Show, and coming up on this edition, we are going to be talking with a rock star from the University of South Carolina who passed for over 7,600 yards in his career, and he had a record of 20 and 14 as a starter at South Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Stephen Garcia will join us on this edition of the Stingray Show. Guys, we've got a lot to cover with him, so let's get things rocking and rolling.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate
that. No, I mean, look, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good. It's kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah. But then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9, with the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
For 75 years and counting, the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op has been serving West Alabama for all of their hunting, outdoor, gardening, and farming needs, as well as seasonal flowers and vegetables. And this year is no different. The Spring Co-op Plant Sale goes on from March the 25th through May the 11th. Pick any 5 for $20. Mix any varieties. That is the Spring Plant Sale at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. The Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op is located in Northport, Alabama, just west of the Highway 82 and 43 intersection at 4301 McFarland Boulevard in Northport. Go by there and see them today for their spring plant sale, March the 25th through May the 11th, only at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. And ladies and gentlemen, with all of that, we want to welcome you inside another edition of the Stingray Show. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it, Heath. This show has the makings to be electric.
Yeah, I am looking heavily forward to our next guest. I think it's going to be a fun interview. I think it's going to be a great interview. I think we're going to have a lot of laughs today. I'll go on and tell everybody this. You probably want to listen to the podcast on this one. This one's probably going to go long. There's probably going to be some extra fun stories. There might be some stuff we have to cut out for radio. So with that, check out the podcast. If you liked any of this on the radio, check out the podcast. You'll like it even more.
Heath, I think it is very safe to say this. Before Johnny Manziel took over the SEC, this guy was the equivalent with his antics in the SEC. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Stephen Garcia. He passed for 7,600 yards and 47 touchdowns in 4 years at South Carolina and was the third quarterback in Gamecock history to pass for over 6,000 yards. And he also had a record of 20 and 14 as a starter for the Gamecocks. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome to the Stingray Show, Mr. Stephen Garcia. Stephen, how are things with you, and where in the world are you today?
I'm good, man. That was a hell of an entrance right there. I'm in Tampa, Florida. You know, like I mentioned earlier, I'm born and raised here, and it's impossible for me to leave and go somewhere else.
Now, are you still involved with football in any kind of way, shape, or form?
Yeah, absolutely. So, once I got done playing, I just started training quarterbacks here locally, and I guess that was 15, I started doing that, and it's just grown like wildfire ever since. And never in a million years that I think I'd be making a living doing it. But yeah, I mean, I try to stay in it as much as possible.
Good deal. Now, my fun question that I always ask everybody that comes on the show, especially reporters and former coaches, what's your best Steve Spurrier story? You're a Spurrier quarterback. You got a little extra with Coach Spurrier. You're not a reporter. You're not a former coach. Because we all know Coach Spurrier loves his quarterbacks, and then he also hangs them out to dry sometimes in the media too. What in the world was it like being recruited by Steve Spurrier and playing for Coach Spurrier? And I'm sure you got 1,000 stories you can share. It's just one funny one you got.
I'll tell you what, it was night and day different from, and I'm sure everybody can attest this from all over the country with their coaches. I mean, when you're getting recruited, they're the nicest guys on planet Earth. And then as soon as you get on campus, it's not even
trash.
It's not the same anymore. I was getting recruited by Coach Shula at Alabama. All these coaches, Coach Meyer, all these other coaches around the SEC, and they all said the same thing. Like, you got to cut your hair and you got to shave your beard. Like that, you got to look the part. Spurrier was the only coach that was recruiting me that said, I don't care what you look like, whatever. I graduated early, and the first workout that we had, he walks up to me, he's like, all right, you're gonna shave your beard and cut your hair, right? And I'm like, are you shitting me? Like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. Like, zero chance. So right off the bat, we started button heads, and it was I was very hard-headed, to say the least. And I mean, there's so many stories that are going through my head, and I'm just trying to think of some PG ones that I can say on the radio and podcasts. I guess really the one that I can think of right off the bat would be, I guess it was leading into the first spring practice. I'm walking in there with the quarterbacks. We had to walk across kind of like a busy highway to go to our practice facilities back then. And I'm walking with the quarterbacks, just kind of talking about, what the deal is usually for spring ball and how that works out. And I see some guy with a pink bandana with no shirt on, just kind of like running around playing fetch and stuff, like with a couple coaches and other couple GAs. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? So we get up there, and Blake Mitchell was the starter at that time, and he goes, just wait, you're gonna get a kick out of this. So we get up there, and of course it's Coach Spurrier, and he's got his pink headband going on and no shirt on. I'm like kind of looking at him out of the corner. I'm like, what is this guy doing? He goes, just catch us some rays, young Garcia. Just catch us some rays. And I'm like, all right, man, that's cool. That's about as PG as I could tell as Coach Spurrier's story, but between me and him at least.
Gotcha. No, we had somebody on the show, and Steve had helped me remember who it was, but I asked him, I was like, what's your best Spurrier story? And he said they were watching film, and he's like, oh, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's my fault. I'm the one that recruited you and signed you and put you in there. It's my fault.
Oh, yeah.
And I just died because everybody could hear Spurrier say that. Who was it, Steve?
Chaz Sutton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Carolina.
And so, we got a big kick out of that. So with that, anything Spurrier ever said during the game to you, condescending or during film room that just would make everybody laugh?
I mean, he was one of the funniest people I think I've ever been around until he starts talking.
Absolutely.
Until he starts talking to you about you.
Yeah.
Then it's not that funny. And we would watch the Saturday games. We would watch them on Monday night as a team. So he'd have the offense, the defense, special teams, and we'd all watch the game. And he'd have his little clicker, and he's just going through. He'd kind of fast forward the defensive plays, and then for offense, and he would just be ripping constantly. Like, it could be a great throw, great play, great everything, and he'd just say, "Why'd you throw it there? What were you thinking?" You probably weren't thinking. You weren't thinking. You were probably thinking about what you're going to do tonight, or something like that, aren't you? You're not thinking about football. And I'm like, dude, why do you have to do that? We would get in like kind of jawing matches sometimes, and my quarterback coach would kind of nudge me on the shoulder, like, dude, just shut the hell up and let him just roast you for a little bit.
That's great.
It's just hard, man. I'm a hard-headed guy, and I can't take too much verbal chewing.
Understandable.
So, Stephen, hold that thought, because we are up against our first break, and when we come back, we are going to dive into your recruitment to South Carolina. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back. welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is Stephen Garcia, the former quarterback from South Carolina. And before the break, we were talking about, your interactions with Coach Steve Spurrier. But Stephen, let's go back a little bit further. Coming out of high school, besides South Carolina, you had offers from Florida, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, as well as others. Did you ever take any other official visits to any of the schools that were recruiting you? And if so, what were those visits like?
Oh, they were awesome. Obviously I'm in Tampa, so I would go up to Florida. I probably went up there 4 or 5 times, took an official visit there. I'm not a huge Gainesville guy. I didn't like anything about it, just to be completely honest, other than, being a Gator.
So what
thought
did
that
you
would've been pretty cool.
dislike it the most about Gainesville? I mean, was it the party scene? Was it the girls? Was it the campus? It is an ugly campus.
Everything, literally everything.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't think of one thing that I liked other than, being on the team. That would have been like the only cool thing.
All right.
So went to Ole Miss. I was very close to committing to Ole Miss, and then right beforehand, Coach Ogeron was like, "Hey, Garcia, I'm not going to be here much longer, so don't come here." So didn't go to Ole Miss, but I did actually go to Starkville since I was in that Mississippi area. I loved Starkville. Just wasn't really. I knew nothing about it, to be completely honest with you. Took a visit to Athens, Georgia. I loved Athens. Matt Stafford was my host. It was really cool. Had a great experience there. And I think that was it as far as visits. That kind of Oklahoma and Louisville kind of came on a little bit later in the scene, but I wanted to kind of stay somewhere in the SEC and this part of the country.
So, Stephen, I do have to ask you a quick follow-up. What was it like meeting Coach O for the first time, especially when he was young and a fiery coach there at Ole Miss?
Awesome. He was absolutely awesome. He was easily my favorite coach that I had conversations with during the whole recruiting process. And that book, I forgot the name of the book, like the Meat Locker, I think is what it's called. He references me several times in that, and I think he would have been absolutely awesome to play for.
Now, Stephen, there's been some legendary stories about when O was at Ole Miss and recruiting and things that happen with recruits and for recruits and benefits and everything. Can you walk us through what happens at a recruiting visit for Ole Miss? What happened to you at your recruiting visit there in Oxford?
Well, I'm married now, so I don't, and my wife's in the other room. I don't want to dive too much into that.
I got you.
I think she heard me through the door, so
That's awesome. So,
but yeah, those visits were out of control. Ole Miss was unbelievable.
Well, let me ask you this then: what was the worst recruiting visit you ever had? Was it Florida?
None of them. They were all awesome. I think I just have something against Florida just because my uncle played at Florida State, and I've just never been a Gator guy. So I wouldn't say any visit was the worst because they were all phenomenal. I just couldn't get past like the Gainesville deal.
I got
so
you.
Stephen, what ultimately made you decide to play for Steve Spurrier in South Carolina?
A couple of different things. First off, I fell in love with the city of Columbia. Again, I had no idea where that even was on the map. But going there, the fans were incredible. And I think the main reason is, Coach Spurrier said something, it still resonates in my head to this day. It's like, you can go to Florida, you can go to Ole Miss, go to these other, Oklahoma, all these other schools, Notre Dame, that have this history, this rich history, this tradition of, being a good team and, just be part of their legacy. Or you can come, to South Carolina where historically we've sucked and we don't have any sort of winning tradition and, kind of create your own legacy and type deal. And, in a way, I guess I kind of did. It clearly didn't end the way I wanted it to, but, poo-poo happens, as they say.
Right. Stephen, I'm a big fan of the movie The Program. That was filmed there at South Carolina.
Yep.
Do they even use that in recruiting visits anymore? They throw that pitch out like, oh yeah, we shot the movie The Program here. I mean, is that even mentioned anymore? Did you even know about that movie before you went up there?
I did know about it. That being said, they never once brought that even up.
Okay.
Who knows what they're telling these guys to recruit now? I mean, when you come to recruiting now, I bet they're just like, yeah, we don't really care. Here's a check. This is how much you're going to get paid to play here. It's crazy.
What's the furthest far-fetched thing that was ever told to you at recruiting by any school?
I don't know. It's been so long. I mean, you gotta think I was class of 2007, so that was many beers ago.
Yes. All right, so let's go back to the X's and O's on the field. Your first action in 2008 came against rival Georgia. What do you remember most about your first action as a Gamecock versus Georgia?
I mean, just the amount of pressure that I was kind of feeling. I was like, I'm a 18-year-old kid, and you're sending me to the Wolves Den playing against a perennial powerhouse in Georgia. I was kind of just looking around. I'm like, holy hell, this is the big time. And I got a few plays and ran around a little bit and threw a ball. I believe it was like Freddie Brown. That I think he was in bounds, but they called him out of bounds. But yeah, I mean, it was. There's nothing like playing the SEC. I mean, it doesn't matter where you play at. You could be at home, you could be in Athens, you could be at Starkville, you could be in Vanderbilt, you could be anywhere. It's a show. It's big time.
Right.
I'm going to ask you about the great upset when you beat Alabama. I mean, that was a CBS game. That was a huge game. And South Carolina won that day. And I remember Coach Spurrier made mention to you at SEC Media Days a couple of years later that you were the best quarterback in America that day and bragged on you. What was it like that night in Columbia? What did you do that night to celebrate?
Again, I can't really dive into that too much, but it was insane. I mean, but we had a house. Me and two teammates of mine had a house, pretty decent sized house, and we had basically the entire team over that night. And I mean, it was it was wild. It was wild to say the least for I think 2 nights actually. But yeah, I mean, that game was insane. And everybody always asks me like, what was the difference in that game compared to anything else? And people are kind of shocked when I tell them like, Spurrier was as relaxed as I've ever been around him. The whole week of practice, he was like, yeah, just go be you. That was his like kind of main thing, telling me specifically. He's like, just play your game, just do what you do what you do, how you operate. And I was like, man, I wish you would have been like that my entire career. I think things would have been a little different for us as a team and me personally. So, it is what it is.
A quick follow up to that, we had somebody on the show and they mentioned that after that game, and I cannot remember which one of your teammates it was, but they said, oh yeah, Stephen was behind some bar and you had your pajama pants on, and he's like, oh, he was serving drinks, he was having a good time.
Oh yeah, that could have been a regular Tuesday though. I mean, that was kind of standard operating procedure during those.
So you were that guy on campus that wore his pajama pants everywhere.
I don't know what the pajama pants reference are. I don't think I ever wore those, but I mean, I did wear a bulletproof vest every now and then. Yeah, one of my buddies was in the FBI, or his dad was in the FBI forever, and gave me a vest. I actually still have it in my room, so I would wear that like underneath like a sports coat or something. Just I don't know, just being stupid. But yeah, it was pretty wild. It got hotter than hell in that thing.
So, Stephen, let's talk about that game on the field. What are some highlights that you remember about playing in that game versus number 1 Alabama in the upset?
I mean, really, I think the first drive. We converted on a couple third downs. I'm kind of looking at the guys, and I'm like, dude, we can play with these guys. Like it. To hell with them. They're Alabama. They're defending national champions. Greg McElroy hasn't lost a game in ever. But we're playing ball with these boys. So let's see how it happens. And we score on that first drive. Marcus catches a little Texas route, as we called it, And then we just scored again, and just defense was playing lights out, special teams was playing lights out, and kind of going into halftime, I'm like, we're going to win this damn game. So yeah, there were several moments of that game that I can recall that were just as Coach Spurrier would say later in the interview, he's like, yeah, we just gave fate a chance. I don't know where he got that from, but he loves saying that phrase.
So on that note, we've got to take another break, and when we come back, we are going to dive into the 2009 season for South Carolina and Stephen Garcia. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back. Citizens of West Alabama, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville, which was established way back in 1907, offers personal loans of all sizes, unsecured and secured, with competitive interest rates. You can contact them today at 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227, or go by and see them in downtown Moundville. They are an equal housing lender and a member of the FDIC. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is Stephen Garcia. And Stephen, let's move to the 2009 season. The South Carolina Gamecocks started off SEC play on the road at Sanford Stadium versus Georgia. What do you remember most about the first game you played between the hedges at Georgia, and how electric was that atmosphere?
Oh, that was wild. We should have won that damn game, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I still talk with Rennie Curran, the guy that actually tipped the ball as we're getting ready to score at the last play of the game. I still communicate with him every now and then, and just tell him how pissed off I am about him doing that. But yeah, that was also it was kind of just overwhelming. I'm looking around. It's just massive stadium, and I forgot what the song was, but the Georgia players are just dancing all around. And I'm just like, man, we're going to be in a dogfight for real. So, but yeah, you just kind of once you kind of get the cobwebs knocked off, it's just playing game. It's just playing ball. It's not a big deal.
Yes.
But that's when you look around, you see the 90,000 people cursing at you. It gets
Oh, I
your blood
bet.
flowing for sure.
I bet.
Okay, so a quick follow-up to that. In the previous segment, you talked about the Alabama game in 2010. However, in 2009, South Carolina came right here to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. Stephen, what was that atmosphere like, and what do you remember most about the South Carolina-Alabama game in 2009?
I remember the defense was playing lights out. I forgot what the scores, but we kind of held in there for a little bit. Mark Ingram, I do remember.
Yeah.
I think we had a few turnovers, but I think he ran for like 300 yards or something crazy like that. But I do remember, unfortunately, we had a play action. It was my first pass of the game, a heavy play action. I was trying to hit Alshon on a deep post, and when I went to go plant and throw, I slipped. My left foot slipped, and I threw basically a fair catch punt to the free safety, and he just took it for a pick six. So that kind of set the tone. But yeah, we ended up fighting back and made some big plays. We had our chances to kind of stay in the game, and I think it was like a 1 or 2 score game. When it all was said and done. But yeah, I think that kind of gave us a little momentum that we're in Tuscaloosa. We had to have a pick six to start the game. I think we can still play with these guys, and we work like hell. It's just Alabama was a different beast back then, and obviously they still are.
Right. Stephen, since you mentioned that, we've heard it before. We've heard it from coaches. We've heard it from former players and both former coaches. Do officials sometimes give Alabama a little too much credit here and there on some calls?
I would assume. I'm
with you on this. I'm not disagreeing. I think they absolutely do. So I'll put those words in my mouth before you say anything else. I firmly believe Alabama has gotten calls for many years, and the Saban effect. But yeah, I feel like the league tries to protect the upper echelon, the blue bloods of the league.
Well, I mean, you look at the NFL and Kansas City. I mean, how many holding penalties did you see in that Super Bowl? That I don't think they got called for one. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some substance to that statement, in my opinion, at least.
So let's go back to the 2009 season. To wrap up that season, Stephen, you got your first taste on the field of the rivalry game versus Clemson. What do you remember most about your first Palmetto Bowl showdown?
Oh man, that was awesome. You know, going and beating those guys is something I'll always remember. You know, it's actually funny.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how big of a rivalry it was until I got there. But yeah, I mean those fans just absolutely despise each other. So you know, getting a chance to start and you know kind of start the streak of I think we beat them 5 years in a row after that 2009 year. You know, to kind of start that trend was incredible. But yeah, I think we beat them pretty good, and then I'm trying to think what the scores. But yeah, I think I threw like 3 touchdowns. Wesley Saunders caught 2 of them. Yeah, that was a fun night as well. They all were actually.
Yes.
If you want to
Stephen, I got to
about
ask, what was your welcome to the SEC moment? When was it like, man, this is for real?
that was 2008 playing at Florida in Gainesville.
Yeah.
I did a little. It was me and Chris Smelly. I don't know if you remember. We were going in and out every single play, and we ended up losing 56-6. Tebow, I think, had 7 touchdowns that game. But anyways, it was my first play, and I did a little zone read and kept it, and you know probably got about 4 or 5 yards. Then I met Brandon Spikes, and he literally like picked me up, kind of like looked at me in the face for like it felt like an eternity, and then just slammed me on the ground. And granted, I was 250 pounds. That was my playing weight.
Right.
And I can't tell you the verbiage that he was using on air, but there was some nasty words being thrown around. So that was kind of like a welcome to the SEC, and yeah, that was a tough deal, but you know it didn't hurt.
Is there anybody worse than Brendan Spikes? If you were in the open field, who's the one guy you don't ever want to see again?
Yeah, that was he and him for sure.
Okay.
I don't even
Yeah.
think it's. I don't even.
We've
think
heard
it's
more than one
close.
Brendan Spikes stories on this show.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
So,
but you know it's
so
funny.
Stephen,
The next year in
go ahead, man.
2009, they were ranked number 1, and we had like a 4th down or whatever, and I did like a little bootleg and scrambled. I juked the hell out of them. Got a first down. Anyways, long story short, we ended up losing by I think 10 points. But after the game, he like came up to me. He's like, "Damn, Garcia, man, you turned into Brett Favre over the past year." I'm like, I didn't know Brett Favre was a scrambler guy, but okay, cool, man, I appreciate it. But it's actually funny. Me and him go back and forth on Twitter every now and then too. So
Good stuff.
It's a pretty cool little, I guess, friendship.
So, Stephen, let's move to the 2010 season. Now, obviously, we talked about the Alabama game in the first segment. However, a few weeks before that, South Carolina had the opportunity early in the season to knock off Cam Newton and Auburn at Auburn, but unfortunately, you were unsuccessful in pulling off that upset. What do you remember most about that game at Jordan-Hare Stadium in 2010?
I just remember how pissed off I was when Spurrier took me out. I mean, I was playing as good as I could possibly remember at the time. Got hit, fumbled. They recovered it. The next drive went up, and I went to try to gain some extra yards. Again, I was 250 pounds, so there was not many linebackers heavier than me. So I went to go put my head down, and somebody punched the ball out. They recovered again. So after the 2 fumbles, he takes me out, puts Connor Shaw in, and Connor ends up throwing 2 picks on his 2 drives. So it's just like, why the hell are you taking me out of this game?
Right.
You know, then we lose by 7 points. So, you know, that was what I really pissed off. But yeah, then you know, obviously the SEC championship game, that was a different kind of story.
You know, Stephen, you mentioned earlier in the show that you're working with quarterbacks and things these days. Is there anybody that we would recognize? Any names that we'd recognize? I guess you've worked with before.
Not that I can think of. I guess the first crop of guys that I started training. One of them went to Mount Union. Braxton Plunk, he just broke all the D3 passing records. Charlie Dean went up to Harvard. He was a 2-year starter over there. He just grad transferred to Western Carolina, so he's done playing ball over there. Trying to think who else, but yeah, nobody in the SEC ranks as of yet. But
Okay.
I think this next round of guys, I think probably have a couple guys that are going to get recruited pretty
All
heavily.
right. Any name that we could that you can think of that we can be proud of to say we broke their name first on the show? Who would that guy be if you had to guess?
Man, maybe my son. Yeah, he's got 2 years
Okay.
left of high school, and he's finally turning his brain on and trying to, and he's figuring out like what it's going to take to get to that level. And beforehand it was kind of just fun and games. Now it's a real serious type deal.
Awesome.
So, Stephen, hold that thought because we are up against yet another break. And when we come back, we are going to dive into the SEC championship game in 2010. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back with Stephen Garcia. It is Girl Scout cookie time, and if you guys like Girl Scout cookies, Strange Brew Coffee House now offers Girl Scout cookie frappes at all locations, including Samoa, Thin Mint, and Tagalong. Delicious frappes are made with real Girl Scout cookies. Strange Brew Coffee House can be found at the University of Alabama campus, also up in Tupelo, Mississippi, if you are heading up there to Tupelo, or their home location over in Starkville, Mississippi. Go by and get a delicious Girl Scout cookie frappe today at one of the Strange Brew Coffee House locations. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is Stephen Garcia, and we were talking before the break about the Auburn game in 2010, and we've already talked about the Alabama game, but I do want to ask you about this. During the regular season in 2010, you guys were able to beat Florida, Tennessee, and Georgia all in the same year for the first time in school history. What does that mean to you looking back on that now?
I mean, that's the first time I ever heard that, to be honest with you. That's that's actually pretty cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah, I mean, so that kind of goes back to what Coach Spurrier was saying in his whole recruiting pitch. He's like, you can go to with these other schools where they've historically been successful, or you can come here where you kind of start your own tradition, your own legacy. And for the fact that that's the first time that's ever happened in school history is wild, and I bet it hasn't happened since then either.
Stephen, we remember all the headlines and the fun stuff that you did back during your college days. And talking to you, you seem so much more mature now and down to earth and grounded and everything. If you could go back and tell yourself, that your college self, anything, what would you tell them?
Calm the hell down and stop being so hard-headed. There were so many things that and especially doing what I'm doing now, that I get to tell these kids. It's like Coach Spurrier would yell at me about wearing a t-shirt and like shorts to class and wearing sandals to class. He's like, wear like what you wear to play golf. And I'm like, well, if I were to play golf, this is what I would wear, because it's 9,000 degrees in Columbia.
Right.
But yeah. He's like, wear a collared shirt, wear khakis, and wear tennis shoes, like closed shoes, and trim your beard, shave your beard, cut your hair. And I was just extremely hard. I said, I'm not doing that. Like, I was like, I'm a grown man. Like, I'll wear what I want to wear. And it's just little things like that I wish I would have just done it just to appease him. And I think we would have had a little bit different of a relationship. But again, it is what it is. But yeah, I definitely would have just told myself to calm down and kind of listen up a little bit more intensely.
If you had a DeLorean time machine and Marty McFly to take you back in time, what would you change? Would you change anything?
I mean, I had an absolute blast. I probably would have changed a few. Well, I definitely would have changed a few decisions I made that ultimately kind of affected my career and how it ended. But again, you don't have a time machine, and there's nothing.
Right.
I spent a lot of time dwelling in the past, especially when I got done playing. very resentful and, pointing the finger. And it's like, I have nobody to point the finger except myself. That's the only person that's responsible for the decisions that I made. And, here I am now. And now I'm welcome back to, I get people that send me stuff all the time to sign, and, people still want me to give like cameo shouts outs and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's awesome. Every single time I go back to Columbia, it's a giant party. And, I'm very thankful for the fans for that, for kind of forgiving me, I guess, so to speak.
So, Stephen, to cap off the 2010 season, South Carolina won the SEC East and played in the SEC championship game in Atlanta. Stephen, even though you guys didn't win that game, please walk us through the hype and the excitement of being there, and especially since it was South Carolina's first trip to the championship game.
Oh man, that was wild. I mean, going through the walkthroughs, going through Atlanta, and just kind of seeing how many fans, and because again, that was the first and the only time that we've ever been to Atlanta for this championship game. I mean, we packed Atlanta out, and I mean, it's not a far drive, from Columbia. So, just walking around and going to restaurants and seeing the amount of hype and the amount of people there. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just remembering it right now. But yeah, I mean, going into halftime, it was 28-14. We were getting the ball at halftime. We were driving down, end up throwing a back of the end zone slant route to Alshon to cut the lead, 28-21. We're like, all right, we got these guys. We're gonna get the ball after halftime. We're gonna go drive down, tie this ball game up, and it's a whole new deal. And then we squib kicked it. Cam Newton got the freaking ball at like the 40-yard line, threw a Hail Mary. The guy catches it over Stephon Gilmore, which is highly, highly unlikely.
Right.
And I just remember looking at the eyes of the defenders, like my teammates, and they're like, there's nothing we can do. We can't stop this damn guy. So, it was 35-21 going to halftime. I think we turned the ball over on a first drive or punt it, and then they score. So it's 42-21, and the wheels just kind of came off from there. I mean, it was Cam was on an absolute mission, that not only that game, but that entire year. And, obviously it showed, but yeah, that was a different beast. That Hail Mary at the end of the half just took the wind completely out of our sails.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to bring that up.
It sucks, but it is what it is.
So, Stephen, your final season in 2011, one of your final games of your career was against Georgia, in which South Carolina won a nail-biter 45-42 there in Athens. What do you remember most about one of your final games versus Georgia?
I remember several things. First off, I remember playing against Aaron Murray. He's a Tampa guy, so you have to kind of talk a little trash to each other before the game. I remember having a scramble play. I was supposed to throw a screen to the left. I rolled right and threw like a corner route to Alshon. And I remember coming to the sideline. I mean, it might have been my best throw I've had in my career. And I remember my quarterback coach, Coach Mangus, just absolutely ripping me to shreds. Like, why didn't you throw the screen? And I'm like, are you kidding me? We just scored. And he's like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm like, what is going on right now, man? Like, relax. By the way, coaches love when you tell them to relax. They absolutely love that. God, oh my, I've never heard the end of that. But I remember that play specifically. I remember Melvin Ingram doing that fake punt and taking it to the freaking house. I remember him playing lights out, and I specifically remember Clowney just absolutely taking over that game, especially late. Just the timely sacks, the strip sacks that he was having. I mean, it was impressive to see it kind of because I didn't really see him in practice because Coach Spurrier didn't let him practice against us. So that was pretty cool seeing him, ball the way he did.
Wow. If you were a high school junior getting ready for your senior year, what coach would you love to go play for? What offense would you love to play in?
I mean, it's hard to say. I like what Lane Kiffin's doing in Ole Miss, and obviously Ole Miss has its own stuff they got going on for him. But I think his offense is pretty legit. Trying to think, it's hard for me not to say Coach Beamer because I got such love for him. He was there when I was there, so it's just hard to compete in right now in this day and age with the NIL and the transfer portal. How much money some of these kids are getting
Oh yeah.
that are coming out of high school. And I was talking with Bo Wallace about this. I'm sure you guys remember that name.
Yeah.
I was talking with him, and I'm like, dude, we'd be retired many, many, many times over. Our kids wouldn't have to work if NIL was going on back then. But
Yeah.
now you got these guys that are, like you just mentioned, that are high school juniors, that they're being promised, 5, 10, some $15 million to play, and they've never played a single snap of college football. And it is a huge difference from high school to college, especially in the
Yeah.
SEC. So I know that's a kind of a roundabout response to your question. But yeah, I mean, as far as just the love of the game, you can't go wrong with any of those guys. But as Coach Saban said, it's the question now is, how much are you going to pay me?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what these high school kids are asking, and that's what the transfer portal kids are asking. And that's when you make arguably the greatest college coach of all time, hang it up, because that's what you're asking. That's a sign that the NCAA needs to get their shit together and kind of put a lid on
Yes.
this thing.
Yeah.
Amen. So, Stephen, hold that thought, because we're up against our final break. And when we come back, we are going to finish up this interview with Stephen Garcia. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be back in just a flash. It is Girl Scout cookie time, and if you guys like Girl Scout cookies, Strange Brew Coffee House now offers Girl Scout cookie frappes at all locations, including Samoa, Thin Mint, and Tagalong. Delicious frappes are made with real Girl Scout cookies. Strange Brew Coffee House can be found at the University of Alabama campus, also up in Tupelo, Mississippi, if you are heading up there to Tupelo, or their home location over in Starkville, Mississippi. Go by and get a delicious Girl Scout cookie frappe today at one of the Strange Brew Coffee House locations. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is Stephen Garcia. And Stephen, during your time at South Carolina, you went 2-0 against rival Clemson. How satisfying is that for you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's very satisfying, especially the amount of trash talk that I can give to some of the guys that obviously I played against that I'm not friends with. We do I forgot what they call it. It's at some brewery in Columbia, but it's basically old Clemson guys versus old Carolina guys, and it's basically like almost like a beer drinking thing. So I don't think I've lost to those guys in that either to date. So, but yeah, I mean it's awesome. Getting a chance to kind of be able to hold that over their heads. It's tough as of
Yes.
late, but it's nice that at least I can talk a little shit to them.
So, Stephen, I do have to ask you, a dear friend of mine is Clemson Tom, and he actually has a question for you. Ask him if I would have been his favorite go-to receiver if you guys had played together in the Arena League.
Absolutely, man. I got to link up with him again. We did a few things together when I was working in Orlando. I know he was living there as well. So ask him when you talk to him. Ask him about the beer chug that we had. Ask him how that went for him.
Okay.
He'll get a kick out of that.
Yes. All right. I've also got another fan question for you. He says, can you ask Stephen Garcia about the night that Andrew Clifford tried to bring a pizza home on a moped and almost made it back?
Who asked that question? Does it say who
I'm
asked
not
it?
sure.
Oh
I'm
my
not
God,
sure.
that is hysterical. I gotta send Cliff this interview then. Yeah, so we were at my buddy's apartment, and we were having a couple beers, just hanging out, and I guess I left early, and then Cliff came back. I guess he was hungry, and I guess he was holding the pizza like this as he was riding his moped, and
Right.
came in. We had an apartment at that time, and I guess somehow or another he slipped from the thing and kind of was unconscious. It's kind of scary. and some girl found him in the middle of the like parking garage. Still, the pizza's still intact. He's like blood everywhere. The scooter's like on his leg. They had to rush him to the hospital. He got stitches on his forehead.
Wow.
Yes, and the next day, I think it was the headline. It was like pizza wielding quarterback slips and falls on scooter or some. It was absolutely hysterical. I gotta get Cliff on here to explain that story. That was unbelievable.
We have got
Yeah.
to find that and just post that on our Facebook page, that article. That's hilarious.
I'll find. I think I have a picture of it. I'll text it to Steve.
Okay.
That's great. You talked about, when you were there playing, Coach Beamer was there as an assistant there under Spurrier. You have any contact with Coach Beamer now?
Yeah.
Do you ever talk to him when you go up there? Do you guys get to hang?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah. I've been up there. I try to make it up there for at least one game a year. Over the past 3 years, I've had some other, marketing stuff that I've been doing with those guys, and got a chance to see them, out of football arena. So it was cool to hang out with them and kind of just shoot the breeze with them and not really talk about football, just talk about, life and everything else. So that's always pretty cool. I know that the NIL and the transfer portal stuff is just, it's aging everyone, pretty rapidly.
Absolutely it
So,
is.
yeah, and it's, I hate it for him, cause he is an all-time guy that just loves football. So it sucks that it's come down to like money and everything else. But again, that's the nature of the beast. But yeah, I'm pulling for him. I'm pulling for him big time. He's one of my favorite coaches that I've ever been around. And, I'm happy that things are going well for him in Columbia. And I hope that things, continue to improve for him.
So, Stephen, I have 2 questions left for you. The first one and the last one about your playing career. Looking back over your entire career there at South Carolina, which player from an opposing team talked the most trash to you, and what were some things that they would say to you?
Oh man. I mean, there was no shortage of trash talking. Trying to think, because I mean, I'm a pretty good trash talker myself, and I would let it fly with the best of them. So, I mean, I would have to say Brandon Spikes, and like I said, I can't really say like
Mhm.
between those lines, man. There was nothing that you couldn't say,
Right.
literally nothing. And I bet if I were to say some of the things that were said between those lines, I'd be canceled, and every single person I ever played against would be canceled. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I had a freaking blast. That was arguably one of my favorite parts of the game was,
Yes.
crashing somebody's head and then, being able to talk a little trash to them.
Right.
All right. And Stephen, my final question for you is simply this. Looking ahead to the 2024 season, how do you think the South Carolina Gamecocks are going to do this upcoming season?
It's tough to say. It really is. I'm pulling for them. I know they got a hellacious schedule. We got a new quarterback in Lenore Sellers, which
Mhm.
I've seen him play. I think he's got all the ability in the world. I'm hoping that our offensive line can kind of block for him a little bit. But that's life in the SEC. You just never know. We're very unproven.
Yes.
I I don't know. I got to take a peek at that schedule. I don't have it. I don't memorize it. But I mean,
Mhm.
I'm hopeful that we make a bowl game. It's a I don't know, man. That's a hard question
Yes.
to be honest. I'm hoping for the best, but at some point you got to be a little more realistic with expectations, and you know, it's hard to say.
Stephen, I got a couple of questions for you before we head out. But what was the most fun you ever had playing football? Was it Pee Wee? Was it in high school with your boys? Was it in college? When was it for you?
It was my freshman year at South Carolina. I was redshirted, so I was doing all scout team stuff, and going against the first team defense and just torching their ass. And I mean, I got to play like I played in high school. I mean, I got to scramble around. I didn't have anybody screaming in my ear like throw, 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 throw. I didn't have any of that. I mean, I was just literally just running around like however I was doing in high school, and we were killing them. And that was definitely my most fun year, which is
Wow.
kind of sucks to say, especially after starting 34 games in in college football. But yeah, my redshirt year, and kind of just playing, balls to the wall was my favorite, or most fun at least.
There you go. There you go. Steve Tannehill had the reputation of party, and he had the mullet and everything. You ever have any conversations with that guy? Did you guys
Oh,
ever
yeah.
get to hang or party?
Oh yeah.
Well,
Oh,
tell
yeah.
us a Steve Tannehill story, because that's a party I want to go to hang out with you two. I'm sure that's going to be a fun night. But
He's a lot more tame.
okay,
From what he used to be, from what I recall or what I've been told. So now I'm kind of carrying the torch of the party guy. But yeah, I mean, I'll go up there, and he owns, I think, a couple different bars now, and every time I come up there, he's like, "Yeah, man, make sure you swing by and sign the wall, and we'll drink a beer and all this other stuff." And yeah, it's not as crazy as you would think. I mean, we're both a little bit older now, but yeah, we'll still throw them back pretty quick.
there you go. Well, my last question for you is this: what is the funniest thing that was ever said in the huddle or on the sideline during a game?
Oh my God, we were playing against Vanderbilt, and in Vanderbilt, and we're kicking their teeth in. And one of
Right.
our linemen, Rokevius Watkins was his name. He had just some mangled teeth. I mean, it was he had some bad shit going on. But one of their linebackers, we're getting ready to like take a knee and end the game. And one of the linebackers like, "Man, you got like a yuck mouth. You got yuck mouth. I bet your breath smells like, you can imagine." And Rokevius, the next play, we're getting ready to take a knee again. He just comes off the ball full speed and just like a water buffalo and just smashes this guy into the ground. And he goes, "That's
Nice.
right. That yuck mouth just put some of that ball juice on you." And I was just like, "What?" I'm just sitting there. We're all looking at it like we're taking a knee, and they start, we start scuffling and stuff. And he said, "Come get some of this ball juice next play." And I'm just like, "Dude, like we're trying to end the game, get the hell out of here."
Right.
Like, what are you guys talking about, man? Jesus Christ. Well, yeah,
That is hilarious.
yeah, that was pretty funny. There were some other funny ones with some other players. I know playing against Arkansas, this is another funny one. We're getting our ass whipped in Fayetteville, and the fans are talking trash to Coach Spurrier's adopted son, who's not a very tall guy. And they're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, get that lawn gnome off the field. Get that guy out of here. Doesn't he have to be at the Kentucky Derby soon?" Just talking about kind of his height. And we're all looking at each other like, "Oh my God, that's actually hilarious." But I felt bad for him, but it was kind of funny. Arkansas, they didn't hold anything back. They were letting it fly.
Yeah, we've always heard LSU are the worst fans. That's not a secret. But if you had to rank the worst fans, 1, 2, and 3, one being the absolute very worst, who are you going with?
I thought Tennessee fans were pretty brutal.
Okay.
Georgia fans were rough. Trying to think. I never played it in LSU, so I don't know about them. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, man, none of it really mattered. It just goes in one ear and out the other. And I consider myself a pretty good trash talker, so I was letting it back at these guys, all the time. Alabama would talk a little bit. I remember, in 2009, that 2009 game that you were referencing early, we're sitting there during warmups, and all these freaking frat dipshits are wearing like their little bow ties and everything, and we're warming up. It's 9,000 degrees outside, and we're sitting there like, "Hey, Garcia, why don't you take your ass on back to Mexico?" And I'm sitting there looking at him. I'm like, here's a 4-letter word. I was like, "I'm fucking Cuban, you asshole."
That's great. That's absolutely great. So sorry. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's absolutely hilarious. Stephen, looking back at it all, what's the funniest thing a fan ever said to you?
I mean, I think it was that.
Okay.
The take your ass on back to Mexico. I was like, what is this guy talking about? I think there was another one where, like I told you earlier, we had to walk across kind of a busy highway to get to our practice field. And we're sitting there, the quarterbacks kind of go out in their own little pod or whatever. And I remember the highway guy stopped the traffic, and the guy kind of goes through. He's like, "Hey, Garcia." And I'm like, "Hey," because people would always do that, and wave to him. And they're like, "Hey, I think you know my daughter." And I'm like, "Oh shit, what?" He goes, "Yeah, it's Stephanie Ziti. Like, do you remember her?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I know that is." "All right, man. See you later." Yeah,
Fun stuff.
That was kind of a weird one, but yeah, people. I mean, for the most part, fans don't really care. They just say what they want to say and don't really expect anybody to say anything back. So when you say something back to them, they're kind of caught off guard.
Right.
Great
so,
stuff.
Stephen, look, man, we have thoroughly enjoyed this electric interview, and going ahead, and I'm going to give you the floor. The last word is yours. Say anything that you would like to.
Oh man, put me on the spot. I don't really have much to say, man. I feel like we've said a good amount, man. I want to appreciate you guys for having me on, and apologize that it's taken so long to get on here. But yeah, I look forward to doing it again. And I know me and my old teammate Pat DeMarco, we're actually looking at starting our own podcast to kind of encompass the South Carolina deal. So when we do that, want to get you guys on the podcast as well. And
anytime, brother. Anytime we can help you, just let us know. Stephen,
sure.
we would love to have you back during the fall and get your take on some things when SEC play gets really up and going good. But anytime you want to come on our show, you let us know, and brother, we'll make it happen.
Hell yeah, I appreciate you guys.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Stephen,
man.
thank you,
Yes,
brother.
sir. Absolutely, guys. Talk to you later.
All right.
See you.
Dude, oh my gosh, that was awesome. Just like I said off the top of the show, that was electric.
You know, I'll say this, and this is bragging about Stephen Garcia. We had Stephen on, and I want to say March Madness was going on. This was a couple of years ago, Stephen. We went to interview him, and he was watching March Madness at one of his buddies' apartments.
Yes.
And he had been drinking, and he told some way over the top stories right off the bat. Like, we were like 10 minutes in, and I'm like, I don't know if we can put any of this on radio, but if we do, everybody in America will know our names because it was just so shocking and over the top. And so I was kind of prepared for that. Stephen has completely matured and has grown up tremendously, and he's become a man. He has taken on responsibility, has become a man. He's married now. But I want to say that was back in like 2020, 2021, maybe.
Yeah.
It was a while back. So, you know, it's so great to have Stephen on. And it looks like he's got his act together. He's training youth in football. He's getting quarterbacks ready. He is helping them tremendously. You know, he talked about a kid at Rutgers, talked about playing quarterback, a kid at Harvard that was playing quarterback, and some other kids, one kid that broke the D3 record in passing at Mount Union. Stephen's doing great things. So he is a contributing member of society. He is a wonderful, fun person. It sounds like he's an excellent coach and mentor to these quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm just glad that he's got his stuff going in the right direction.
And Heath, let me also say this. No better person to make an example out of kids. Hey, don't do what I did in college. Do it this way.
Yeah, and him even admitting to that, like there was not a finger to point at anyone but himself.
Yeah.
He has realized the stubbornness, pig-headedness, all the stuff that he did. He realizes, like, I was a punk kid that couldn't be told anything. I was cocky, I was arrogant, I was full of myself, and he sees that now. Yeah. And so, the humbleness that he shows, he's turned into an awesome person in society, and I'm proud that he's married. Seems like he's very happily married. And I'm just glad that he's got things going in the right direction. I wish nothing but the best for Stephen Garcia.
Yes.
But he was awesome. He was always fun to follow in college because if a story already like, breaking news out of South Carolina, like, what did Stephen Garcia do?
Yes.
So, it was always fun back then, but it's still fun now. But he's got his act together, and I'm proud of him for that. Tremendously proud for him.
So, Heath, on that note, unfortunately, we've got to sign off again on the Stingray Show. We hope that you guys have thoroughly enjoyed it with Stephen Garcia. We will see you guys on down the line.
Check out the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. This show is a million times better than what you heard on the radio. Check out the podcast.
Good night, Tuscaloosa.